you can elect to be. I kind of have to be, but I would say it's a lot larger than me. So I have a spot of a boggle. Place I'm staying is lovely. However, I can't really continue to do that ad infinitum with no unemployment insurance, no way to really prove PTSD from other things or claim disability, and I wouldn't want to anyway. I'd much rather get back to working things like cloud engineering services or cloud design and architecture services, which I did for a couple years at AWS before this all just blew up in my face following a divorce. So I'm in Arlington. I've lived 18 and a half years of the 22 years that I've been in the United States as an adult in Northern Virginia. And I'm presented with a spot of a boggle, and that is, you can't get into a shelter in Arlington until you've been here for 90 days. Well, that's not great. I've only been here for about a month. You see, I do have family that live in Fairfax, but we're not on talking terms. The woman is, I think, probably, I don't know if she's alive or dead. Okay, so there's that. The car is still there. The last I spent about $200 in taxis going back and forth. The car is still there, and apparently someone saw her a week ago, and this was at the start of the month, so one presumes alive. Regardless, it's not an option because it's been pretty unsafe for me for a lot of reasons that extend back to when I was very young and up and through. Been starved in front of the doors. A lot of drama. It's suitable for stories and legends almost, or a parable of a creation that people are doing because of a pact they had to make when my father shot himself when he was 13. Honestly, the complexities of that are hard to go into without people just saying, well, you're crazy. That kind of thing doesn't happen. No, I assure you it absolutely does. Regardless, I haven't been here for 90 days. So they gave me a list of other shelters, and I'm very concerned about doing anything other than staying within a direct line to the DC Metro specifically. And why that would be is you can get yourself vanished and killed out in the country in a heartbeat, right? You want to stay in the surrounds. So my quest this week is to somehow convince Arlington Health and Human Services that I should be allowed to stay in some form of accommodation or rent a room and I don't know how to get jobs. It's like one of my former employers won't allow me to reset the password on their employee portal. I guess I'm persona non gratis there. I really don't know. The thoughts on that come down to, you're LGBT. You're gay. You had a husband, he had cancer twice. When he got through that, got better, you learn more and more about who he was and how that process had affected him and who he was before you even met him. It was a cold and long time for me. And that's kind of an irrelevancy to folk at work. You're just an oddity that can be pushed about, right? And then once the people start having children and they start getting raised up into their now they're going to high school and college, they use some office people use you both either as an office boy to push around or as some kind of target of an objection. You know, you heard Trump say, oh, that's a nasty lady, that's a nasty lady, that's a disagreeable man. It's the same kind of thing. You end up being cast as this. And even for defending yourself, it's thought of as not right. When I was working at Bloomberg, for example, I had one gentleman who, in a public meeting, the vast majority of the experience was lovely and great, but I had these events which would happen, like someone just saying, nobody likes you in a meeting. And then just, I dare you to tell HR, I dare you to tell HR. And me having to sort of like buffet that off and say, I'm just not going to listen to this. It's, why are you having a tantrum? But then it's me that's perceived as bad for saying that occurred. Because I would affect someone who's a man with a family. Right? When you reach a certain age, you start being preyed upon because you occupy a slot. My entire life I've survived on technical expertise. I've never managed the HR of anyone in my life. I've helped with projects and leading people and training people and did a lot of that at Amazon. But never once have I been in charge of saying to someone, you know, you may no longer eat or you are subject to destitution. You know, having to fire people or whatnot. I've never been fired. I've only ever had glowing performance reports, and then, boom, people get very upset. And when social events happen with me, they take it as an advantage. Private social events. With regard to Amazon, I was given about no time whatsoever to process extrication from a 13-year relationship and 10-year marriage with 2 bouts of cancer, with 0 support from me or the other side of the family involved. They got insurance from me, but they also pushed me away at the same time. I am so close to wishing all of the time for, why don't we have voluntary euthanasia? Because no one wants to do several dozen more years of this when you're going to be like, there's your home now. This corner. That's your pillow, that hubcap. I remain ready, willing, and able to work. I keep looking for jobs and applying for them. It's not impressive when you have to put in, you know, homeless on the thing. I had someone at Wizards tell me, never let everyone know that you're poor. And honestly, why not? It means you're exploitable. Is I guess what he was going to say after that, but he never did. The point is, he shouldn't be exploiting people. Good morning. I think I got fuck all better to do, and I'm looking a little bit under the weather today. Well, why are you feeling under the weather? Did you eat raw beef heart yesterday? I did. I had 2 slices of the outer bit of it, which apparently is safe. But what I didn't realize is, when you eat a heart of an animal, that has got some hardcore, I don't like to be hit, and there's some immunity in me. Because it felt like my body was at battle with the thing. I did alright though, because I ate an entire round of brie cheese. But feeling a bit messed, so I suppose I'll try my first time just editing these together and see if I can sound a little bit better than just, you know, slapping it up here live. The travails continue. The travails continue. It really is a case of mercy. I mean, I had, I spoke to a Catholic charity. Well, I didn't speak to them. I attended a YouTube session. Private YouTube session. Run by exorcists. And suffice it to say, I wrote a letter to the folks who referred me there and the fellow who ran it. And in their defense, it's something that must be hard to do with several tens of thousands of people who could show up at any time and several thousand that do. But the quality of the live chat in that thing was like nothing I've ever seen. You've got people being vicious to each other on TikTok, making nasty little videos about torturing animals or, you know, God knows what, each other. But this was just like oddly biblical and very much aimed at do this to someone else because me. The candor and the tone of the prayer was pray for us, pray for us, pray for us. All you martyrs that died, pray for us, pray for us, pray for us. It seemed back to damn front. You don't know. You hope it provides some kind of solace and service to folks. But the manner of presentation was very poor. Very specifically, one thing that I had to call out, and then would every single time, is if you offer advice to people who are suicidal and then do not follow up with, you call 911, then you're kind of failing at your job. So fix that. The rest is just my thoughts, but you really should fix that. That's like base support services acumen or requirement, one might think, right? So words are wise there. Aside, the viciousness of it was again, it took me aback. We talked about, or the pastor talked about, what occurs at the moments of death. And the beast of Satan taking someone. And the sort of lust and carnal glee that came over the man's eyes for quite a time, and that was backed up by his responsorial psalm helpers, was rather disturbing. When you look at something like exorcism, and someone who's being possessed, they're either deeply mentally ill, or it represents a massive failing of the community. Someone has poisoned or compromised a person. There may be trickery, chicanery, or nonsense that's involved. I mean, I've been in Seattle and had walked past someone and had everything from my heart tinged by people who just pull at your heartstrings, quite literally. Directed energy weapons are real. They've been acknowledging them since 2016. Seattle is a very tech-forward place where they like to pretend that they can just experiment on that kind of stuff all the time, so I'm not as far-fetched as you might think. But the worst of the kinds of things I've seen is if you feel that you're being dragged out of your body and things like that. Odd kinds of magnetism. I've had people say that they're going to give me micro seizures. I've had people say that they're going to burn me in the forest. That was all Seattle, never back here. It's a little bit more civilized back here, one hopes. Anyway, I'm in a lovely square. I found a Lidl that has like jalapeno peppers that are 49 cents a pound. $1.49 for something that costs you $5-6 in Whole Foods. Bargain. Bargain. Same with protein powder. They've got protein powder which is half the price of this for like the same item in Whole Foods, and a third less of the price than CVS, which is freaking marvelous. So I'm debating between that and they're not open, and a Subway that's just opened. One thing that's very nice about staying at this place I'm at is they have some fantastic food. There's like a section of, they've just opened a peri peri chicken as well. But they have 4 or 5 restaurants, kebabs, an Indian place, and oh my goodness, it smells good. There's a secret Indian place that's off in a building of its own that I haven't tried yet, and it looks really good. But I'm trying to like keep weight down because it's important for me, not so I can like, be a good-looking prostitute if everything hits the fan and I'm on the streets. No, that's not an option. A 43-year-old man, ugly as hell. And I look better when my hair's long, but I had to cut it off because, believe it or not, they were training ravens in West Seattle to attack me. I do not know why. It's been a time. Anyway, good food, highly spicy. So what's funny as well? They recycle movies from like 2012-ish into the 2020s. There's one that's on Netflix. It's a UK one about some guy who does graffiti and his friend, and the separation of his friend when his friend has a child, and the mother who may or may not have agreed to sell the person, and these weird undertows of horrors of human trafficking. Very, very literal and in your face, but they drag forth something, and you kind of know it is because they're showing pictures of like this one fellow associating with Tony Blair, and it's kind of implied that that was the time that was current. But a few scenes were refilmed or changed such that they were, they have an interview and they say that it was happened in 2020, this guy was arrested. But they never changed things like the pictures. So it's interesting that they do that. So why is that relevant? He's stopping smoking again. Well, these are nasty as hell. It's my last one, believe it or not. We'll see. No, I'm trying. I'm going to have to. Well, it's because I don't have the time, and I must stay sprightly. Why is it relevant? Because that shit does happen. Folk get captured. Folk get sold. Apparently, old Papa, long dead, 30 years dead, which it fucking annoys me that this keeps coming up on me, was a Freemason. They invited me to join their little club when I was at university. They have been looking, or some have been looking, for some kind of way to blackmail or bribe me for a very, very long time, while trying to stay amorphous. As I've aged, it's got sort of into sort of like fiscal crime, and they've recruited, whoever they are, members of my family, who I don't associate with now because, apart from the fact that they have their own child now, as far as I see it, that's just, and you should sever. Never speak of me again. You just survive your child and never speak of me again. That doesn't sort out my issue, but the fact of the matter is, would I touch another one with the transgenerational? No. And that's really what's got to stop, is these odd sort of like transgenerational followings that seem to occur. It's highly illegal. So how's that really worked out? What do you have that you can quantify? Dozens upon dozens upon dozens of things and 5,000 tweets in just this account talking about them. But aside, major events. Trying to give me whiskey in a measure by an architect called Alexander, which would have killed me at the start of my Edinburgh adventures. Treating me like a dog or a pet with frisbee in my first sexual encounter. Being in someone's house where they were having some kind of like, I don't know, sex party adventure time, and subsequently having a woman chanting manhood, manhood, manhood at me, a mother of a friend, and then the friend doing me up the buttocks in the bathroom, while the sister, 2 years younger, was posted outside the door to guard it. Just odd little things that you don't know about at the time, but were probably exchanges of things, trades for this or that. And much more aside, when we got over here, what was the first thing I've noticed? Remembering all of the things is difficult. It comes to you in flashes. But it's important that you do, because this kind of thing probably happens. It's a coercive element that travels with you through your life. And is passed around and from everything from folk trying to drive you mad. I had one event in Edinburgh where close lookalikes of a person I knew were following me around while I was trying to get to a hospital with pneumonia. And you'd think that, oh well, you're obviously just not yourself. But that's not true. It's when happenstance keeps hitting you like lightning, again and again and again and again and again. Over decades, you think that there's something going on, but you can't prove it. Right? It's a coercive element. It is good that I did not become a clinician. Had I, more than likely, I would have been addicted to something by someone pricking me with something. And think about that in the United States as an abstraction away from me, which is always healthy. A couple of bad nurses in an isolated medical environment, like most doctors encounter in this country, doesn't just end a career, it captures a clinician. Now we have things like exploitative drug trade. We had odd things we saw, like folk who'd half see that, okay, you're kind of safe, we can kind of use you. Meeting parents of foreign drug dealers in their house. Do you still remember their faces? Yes. Other things like that. Almost indelible memories in some cases that are like engrams at Scientology. Strange teachers who used to go on about Scientology and Quentin Tarantino at the same time. An odd lust for a time of removal or cull, which let them engage in carnality, and is this odd echo or remnant of old wars. That, USA, is something you want to fight, by the way. That's naughty foreign influence, not something to emulate. Everyone who exists is bound up in some form of protectionism. What does that mean? You pay your taxes, don't you? Some make bargains with others to stay safe. Terrible things happen, like if someone's infertile, they'll have to skirt the bounds to be able to stay in a social climb where someone else impregnates their children or impregnates their wives so that they can have children, and then they might be seized from them at any moment or evacuated or taken, and it ends up just really crushing a person. Much more aside. And they say everyone picks their poison. Truth of the matter is, where should you align in that? Government. It's the default option that isn't run by people who have absolutely no bounds. A corporation runs upon the whims of its owners. Shareholders lock it down, but the truth of the matter is you tend to work in a cave, a stomach, or an organ of a larger organization. Or in a smaller one, you really are at the whims of someone who could, I am having a bad day and did not have my coffee. So it's tyrants abound, do they not? So where does the little man or the man who's not represented fit in with that kind of thing? Why would they engage in this kind of protectionism? Well, because it works. Beat up a few folk, crash a few contracts, all of a sudden things look up. Shit, we can even rig it so you win the lottery. Why not just buy out all the things and let you win it? Right? So, legend made. Stones thrown. Some of them are more benign, right? Like that kind of fiscal crime. Some of them are not. What's really going on in Ukraine? You guys have a lot of loose nuclear artifacts, don't you? You ever seen the movie Night Watch? There's a kid with a yo-yo that can go around and change the world. Back in the day, they might have given you a flashlight to blast the bad people away. They give children strange dreams and allowed them to be real, and to create a legend of recovery while they were all dying. Those kinds of things are, in effect, directed energy weapons. Simpler, something like feeding you a poisoned Twinkie in West Seattle. And I've never, ever touched something to my lips which caused them to immediately wilt, and with a wound that responded to gravity. Mercifully, I didn't eat that thing. I got a blister at the tip of my index finger on the left, which even still suffers from a degraded level of sense. It's trying to recover, but it's not really a recovery, it's a remap of what exists. That I reported to the police. It was a local convenience store that was selling Twinkies for 50 cents, and there was one just sitting out. I had another experience in that very same store where a lady with a Chanel bag had it pointed towards me. And when I walked in the place, it was white and black. And by the time I left, my eyes felt as if they were bleeding and they were covered over in red. I've had the police shine lights into my eyes and threaten to leave me in an oubliette. I've had a number of events. Does it sound like Chicken Little saying the sky's falling? It does as the concatenation of it. But if you look at it over a period of time, the one thing I've been able to do is maintain a sort of... I've kept my head alive. For example, I did not eat the radioactive Twinkie. It was alpha rats. Or something heavy. Strontium something or other. They're too poisonous. Probably just something low grade. Do you know how they make it? If you have, even with chemo, they'll give this to people who are going to die. They give them an echo of the blast of it, and they can make people feel as if they're encountering something with a magnetic pull. It's just a way to give a kid a wish. But it's a wash of radiation. You can put shapes in people's heads that way. You can directly shine something upon the retina of someone with computers these days and create an image that's as if you saw it yourself. I've had that demoed in picture-in-picture mode at the bottom right of my right eye. Same place that policeman shone a laser pointer far too bright for far too long at me. Isn't that odd? You making this up? Nope. Are you insane? Nope. Can you prove all of these things over a period of decades? Nope. Kind of screwed, huh? So what do you try and take from it? I mean, the only positive thing you can try and take from it is we definitely don't want this happening to other people. Others would say that we do, because it's illustrative of a way to teach a people how to behave or not behave. That's a simple loop that keeps you focused on exclusion of social groups or behaviors or this, that, the t'other. In my example, we don't like the gay people. The real problem I've experienced is while there's been a lot of nice people I've worked with, I've kind of been traveled with a crew who are very old. When I first started working with in the United States, most people were at minimum 15 years older than me, and the vast majority were, in their 40s or 50s. So you think about the mindset of those folks. You're in a sort of micro environment where they can be intolerant. And if you came over from a little private school environment where you were only allowed to survive after Good Daddy killed himself at 13 and you became head of household because the mother decided she's going to go away and have an adventure in the United States. You know what? I've had 3 dogs taken from me. I've seen sort of odd repetition of that, again in West Seattle, of people having to turn over their dogs or something bad will help. I don't even understand what in the hell is going on. It's like they're pulling in a cull. Is what they're doing. Whoever they are. And I really do hope that doesn't spread, because it's like everything you disapprove of until you need it. Some people are violently against in vitro fertilization. But the first time you want to have a kid and you find out that it's just not for you because, happenstance, luck, or environmental exposure says no, you're very much going to want things like science that says, well, we can do that and help you, and your view shall change. With medical things, it happens like that. However, with behavior, like my son or daughter doesn't do what I want or emulate the familial pattern that I like, it's dual-edged. They excuse sacrificing or demonizing one of their own as an example to the rest of their family of this is what will happen to you if they're wealthy enough to create a microcosm like that. Or they just have that done for them and just sort of proxied out for there's a demographic. Create and sustain it. I don't know how to make that go away. But it's definitely illegal. In essence, it's actually very simple. Reduce a person to some kind of poverty. Induce some kind of mental condition. Better. Convince them or to somehow hurt themselves. And then you can box and eliminate. And use that as a power bow. Once they're poor enough, they can be slipped away. Abducted, effectively. And what happens to them then is really just a vanishing. But the legend of it is used in another kind of mirror to show people that that's what happens if you don't do X or Y. As I said, a bunch of people pretending to be coercers and following out a manual from everything from how to abuse your child in the womb to shape them in such a way that they'll be hurt for the rest of their life, to how to create a warning, a scarecrow, or a parable that lets us set a society into a certain kind of way. The good news is things like machine learning systems of collective examination of data that can go real fast. To put it simply, go real fast. They know that we're cheating. So the pivotal moment that we're at, it's not a degrading of a society. It's really an opportunity to burn out a lot of that. I try and think that those that really have this sort of carnal desire to feast upon others can convert their lusts for that kind of an anger, that kind of a sort of motile coliseum of the torture of a person that's put on effectively a game of Clue for the ultra-rich, where they get to like roll an adventure for other people. I want that drained out.